Morning, everyone. This is going to be our last session of Winter Wonders for our virtual series this winter. And we have Lindsay and Emma joining us from Glacier National Park. And we're excited for them to share with us some resources that they have at their park site, and then also ones that are available for across the state for out-of-school time providers.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Ranger Lindsay.
And I'm Ranger Emma.
And we are education technicians here at Glacier National Park. So our job is to connect students with Glacier and with the resources here at Glacier. So today we're going to talk about a lot of the different things that we do here at Glacier in our education program. So whether that's field trips, I know this is the After School Alliance, so not sure, whether you guys do field trips and things like that, but we'll talk about those, what we do, focusing on our winter field trips, our winter ecology field trips that we have going on right now, but also talking about the other ones. We'll talk about our distance learning programs, which are available to all kinds of different groups. So those are another resource that we do from here, and we engage with you directly and live, but you can do from all over the country, as well as some of our traveling trunks, some activities that you can do with your students wherever you are, and some of the resources on our website. So we'll kind of go through all of that, and we will have questions, time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, if you could kind of hold those to the end, we would be really happy to answer those. Okay. So with that, I think we will start. Sorry, we're getting a little blurry here. We will start with field trips. So for our winter field trips, that's what we're doing right now and focusing on. And kind of our goal in the education program here at Glacier is to really connect students with the natural world, whether that's here at Glacier and our resources here at the park specifically, or with, nature in their own backyard or wherever they are. So kind of all of these resources and programs that we do are with, that kind of a goal in mind, making sure that we connect students with the outdoors and with nature. And especially in winter, that is a big goal of ours, because I know winter, it's easy to, stay inside, the snow sometimes, especially as adults, I feel like sometimes it's like, it's snowing, this is going to affect me driving my car and all that. But we want students to really be able to get outside and have an experience outdoors in the winter, to enjoy that winter experience, and also to learn about and appreciate winter and snow and all of that, because it's such an important part of everything here in Montana. So for our winter ecology programs, we have students come and visit Glacier National Park, and we do snowshoe hikes, and we also focus on a lot of different things during that. Sorry, I'm going in and out and being a little blurry here.
Holding your hand out, it might focus on
that might focus. Anyway, but so for our programs, we do them for all different ages. We have a different focus for different age groups. So for example, we have younger kids that come and visit Glacier. For the younger kids, we do a snowshoe walk. We do a kind of shorter snowshoe walk, and we provide the snowshoes, of course. And we look at kind of how animals are adapting to winter. We are bringing them out into winter, noticing signs of life out in the winter, and doing all kinds of kind of fun activities as we're out there, on our snowshoes, and kind of connecting them with winter. For some of the older groups, so like 3rd to 5th graders, we kind of dive a little bit more into snow science, talk about energy and how that is how that's involved in kind of the winter world, and whether animals are conserving energy, and things like that. And we do some kind of just kind of looking at the snow, learning about that science, but also going out and looking at how animals are doing the winter and doing those snowshoe programs. And then for 6th to 12th graders, we focus a little bit more on the snow science. There's Emma, by the way, you might recognize her from a little earlier. And we go out and we dig snow pits. We look at the temperature of the snow at different layers. We look at snow water equivalents, so how much water is in that snow. And that's something that, here at Glacier, we have scientists that are monitoring our snowpack, our glaciers, and that snow science is a really important part of what we do here. And so we bring that to our 6th to 12th graders. And so, yeah, we're bringing those students out, We're kind of providing different experiences, different activities, depending on the age groups. And this is something we're diving into this year. We haven't been doing them as much for a couple years, but this year we're excited to kind of dive back in. We're already pretty much fully booked. We've only got a couple days of availability left, but we will be doing those next year as well. So at the end, we will have our email address, and you can feel free to email us if you would like to hear about those programs. But I'll pass it back to Emma real quick here, and you can talk about our spring and fall programs as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So fortunately for me, it is not always winter in Glacier National Park. We do have some spring and fall field trips. I'm not going to go too in depth on those, but I am going to bring up our website so you can find more information on that at your leisure. So if you go to Glacier National Park's website, go to our education page, plan a field trip, and ranger guided field trip, you will see all of the field trips that we offer. So here you can find out more about our sensory exploration for kindergartens, wild animals and wild places for first grade, exploring habitats for second grade, of course, more about our winter ecology. You can also find out more about forest processes, which we do for 3rd through 5th grade, fire ecology, which we do for 4th through 5th grade, and then of course more on our winter ecology. And then for older students, we do What Do Scientists Do, which looks at fire and forest success and data, and we actually collect that data in the field and look at it. We do earth science hike up towards the avalanche trail quite often. And then, of course, our winter ecology field trips. And there are some field trips that are able to be done through our native plant and citizen science program here at the park, but those aren't run directly through the education program here. So if you'd like to find out more, you can check out our website, and we'll send that out in an email as well. So something which is a little bit easier for folks from all over the place to check out is our distance learning opportunities. So I have our distance learning page pulled up. Again, you can go to our website, go to education, and then click on distance learning. We actually use this same exact setup. So Lindsay and I have a green screen behind us, kind of acting like the weather people, which is very fun. But we are hoping to start taking reservations for distance learning in late February. So if you're interested in those, you can email us to get on our list of people we reach out to once we are ready to start taking reservations for those. One of our programs is a Ask a Ranger program, which is done through K through 12th grade. Your class actually sends us 5 to 10 questions ahead of time, at least a week ahead of time, and we build the whole program around what your students asked. Now, for younger kids, K through 2nd grade, that program is just 45 minutes, and we aim to have at least 10 or 15 of those minutes at the end for additional questions. And then for older students, that can be up to an hour. Again, with 10 to 15 minutes at the end for any additional questions that come up. Now, what we are very well known for, besides glaciers, are bears. So we have a bear-specific distance learning program here at Glacier. We have one program that is focused on younger students and another program that is focused on older students. That program is an hour long, again, with 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. We do have some flexibility. We can make programs a little bit shorter, but a lot of these programs we can't do in like half an hour, for instance. We also have our geology program called Making the Mountains. That is an hour-long program. And again, with 15 minutes for questions at the end within that hour. And this is all about the geology of Glacier National Park and how Glacier National Park came to look the way it does now. For some of our younger students, K through 2nd, we have our Habitat Adventure program, which is an interactive online hike that students do with us. That is a 45-minute lesson. It can be a little bit shorter if need be, but not by much. And then for older students, this is aimed at 6th through 8th grade, but it can be done for older students in high school, is our Disappearing Glaciers program. This is all about climate change and how it is currently affecting Glacier National Park and our glaciers, and how it is projected to affect our glaciers and our whole environment here at Glacier National Park. That program is also an hour, again, with about 15 minutes of that hour at the end for questions. So hopefully we'll have those up and running in a month or so. And again, if you want to be on our email list for that, we'll give you that email towards the end. But with that, I'm going to hand that back to Lindsay to talk about some of our other resources for you.
Yeah, so our field trips and distance learning programs are great, but those are ones that do require a bit of scheduling and depend on our availability and schedule as rangers. So we'd be happy to have you join for one of those. But we also have some other resources that are for you and resources that you can use independently with your class in whatever way you want. And one of those is our traveling trunks. And so the traveling trunks are kind of aimed toward, anybody, teachers and things like that want to have these resources that, for example, you're probably not going to buy like pelts for like one lesson for your class. And so we have resources available as well as lesson plans and books and all kinds of different things that you might use for a variety of different topics that are related to Glacier. And so these traveling trunks can be checked out usually for 2 to 4 weeks. So you can keep them for a while, and they've got lots of lesson plans, again, books, different resources like, pelts. We have one that has skulls. We have all kinds of different programs that I'll pull up here in a minute. And these are ones that for most of them, those of you who are coming from Northwest Montana, you can pick them up here at Glacier. So we can arrange to either have them on the west side of the park or at the east side of the park. So whatever is best for you, but you can pick them up here and then just bring them back 2 to 4 weeks later. So those are another one where you can contact us at the email that we'll share with you here at the end, and also we'll send out information in an email after this to you as well, in order to arrange one of those trunks. Now the different trunks that we have, let me pull that up one moment here. Okay. So we've got, again, that bears one. Bears are something that, with grizzly and black bears, that's a big topic here at Glacier. So we have one about bears. Again, it has lots of different things you can use. This one's aimed for K to 12. So we have different lesson plans for different age groups, a whole variety of resources that you can use. Another big topic at Glacier is fire and fire ecology. So we also have a fireworks trunk so that you can look at physical and chemical properties of fire and the way that fire is part of our ecosystem and the Western landscape. So that's another great one that you can check out. We have one about the human history of Glacier, and that is one that a lot of teachers will incorporate as part of the
Indian Education for All.
Yes, Indian Education for All. So this is one that a lot of teachers have used and really appreciated as part of that. On human history, we've got plant invaders, about invasive plants. And then we also have a repeat photography trunk. So you may or may not have heard of some of the repeat photography that happens here at Glacier. And it's a way that over the years, scientists have been able to track the glaciers by looking at, photos from however many years ago. The one in the example looks like 1913 to 2008. And then to take the same photo from the same place to see kind of how that glacier has retreated or changed. So this is the one trunk that we actually can ship just because it's not as bulky as some of the other ones, doesn't have all the bulky stuff in it. So this is one where wherever you are, we can ship that one to you. So other ones you pick up here in Northwest Montana, but that one we can ship to other places. And it's a great way to talk about climate change and other kinds of things and just changing glaciers and all of that. And then some of the other ones we have skulls, looking at the different properties of skulls, which can be really fun. And again, you might not want to purchase, skulls for one activity or models of skulls. And so you can check that out to be able to use those, look at those differences. One about songbirds, traditional native games, as well as the relationships between predator and prey. So that is, again, another kind of great way for you to have resources to use to connect students with Glacier and the resources of Glacier and just kind of the natural world in general. So that's kind of, these traveling trunks, things that we have. But we also have a lot of resources on our website. And right now, Emma and I are going to go over some of the activities that we do. We're kind of going to focus on winter activities that you can do with students that you work with, even without a lot of materials. So things that you could take and do with your students. So I think I'll pass it over to Emma to talk about the first one of those.
Excellent. All right, I am going to talk about one of my favorite topics and my favorite game, which is called camouflage. I normally introduce this topic by asking students what animals do in the winter months. So they either migrate, they hibernate, or they stick around and tough out the winter or resist the wintry conditions. And so I say, okay, we're going to focus in on those animals that resist wintry conditions and tough out the winter. And then I'll ask what animals do to help them survive during the winter months. Students might say, they build different homes, they put on a lot of fat, or they actually have a mechanism within them that changes the color of their fur to help them blend into their environment. And so we'll talk about camouflage and whether that is in terms of predator species, such as ermines. This is what one looks like during the summer months where they can blend into their environment. And then we talk about as the days get shorter, as those sunlight hours get less and less and less, this triggers a hormonal change within the animals. And then their fur starts to change so that they blend into their environment better. And so here is an example of the same species, an ermine, that has changed its color to blend in with the winter environment. So they do this change no matter what, whether there is snow on the ground or not. This is determined by the shortening of days, and then in the spring by the lengthening of days when they change their coats back. We will also talk about prey species such as snowshoe hares. And this particular snowshoe hare looked like it was about halfway through changing its coat when it died. But snowshoe hares will look more like this during the summer months when they can blend into the forest environment, and they will change their coats to white to blend into the snowy environment so that they don't get eaten. So if you have pelts, you can talk about that with pelts, whether you borrow those from us or you have access to them otherwise. You can always pull up pictures of different animals or print out pictures of different animals. But there are a variety of ways you can talk about this. Now, once we talk about camouflage, I like to play a couple of different games. With younger students, I will actually use some cutouts of different animals to play with them and to kind of understand the advantages of camouflage. So I'll gather the students around and I will have someone else hide these brown snowshoe hares, and I'll put out the exact number of however many students I have. And then I will say, okay, you're going to have just a minute to go and find all of these brown snowshoe hares. Everyone has to bring one back to me, and I'm going to time you. We're going to see how long it's going to take for you all to find every one of these brown snowshoe hares. So they go and do that. And normally it's pretty quick because it's a brown snowshoe hare on a white snowy surface, pretty easy to spot. So we'll time them, we'll talk about that. And then I will have someone else hide our white snowshoe hares. And we'll do the same thing. So you have just a minute to go and search and find as many of these as you can. Everyone brings back one to me. And then it usually takes them quite a lot longer to find these white snowshoe hares. Or honestly, they don't always find all of them. So it's important to count them as they come back to you. We'll talk about the advantages of blending into our environment, again, either as a prey species or a predator species, and how that helps animals to conserve energy. Now, you can do this game in your classroom, you can do it out on the field or in the woods. If you do have an area where students can actually hide and play a game of camouflage themselves, it's very fun to go play this hide and seek game with them. So in Glacier here, we have plenty of forest, and we will do a bigger game of camouflage with students where I will say, okay, I have been transformed into a hungry lynx, and all of you have been transformed into snowshoe hares. And your job is to go out within the set parameters of wherever they're hiding and to hide from me so that I can't see you. Because if I see you, I'm going to point at you and say your name or what you're wearing, and then you have to come out and I will have eaten you. So we'll play around at that. I'll turn around, give them 30 seconds to run into the woods, turn back around, and then I'll see who I can find. And then we'll all come back together, talk about who was successful and who wasn't. And then I will actually do another round where I have a white sheet that I can drape around a student that's wearing a particularly bright coat that day, so they have a better chance of blending in. And then I will send the students back out. And this time I'll say, well, snowshoe hares can't hide completely all the time. They have to go out and they have to find food, they have to drink water, so they can't hide all the time. They have to go out and do things. So you can't hide from me all the time. You have to be able to see me at all times while you are hiding. And throughout the game, as I'm looking for students, I will occasionally hold up a card that will be a different color. And I'll hold up 3 cards. One might be white or blue or green. And when students come back in, if I haven't eaten them, they have to tell me what order those cards were held up. It can be pretty tough for students to see numbers if you're holding them up like this, especially if you're wearing gloves. So using those kind of color-coded cards as a way for them to be honest that they have to see you during this time. So that's a really great way to talk about some animal adaptations that creatures have here in Glacier. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay to talk about some other activities.
Yeah. So another thing that I mentioned earlier is that as we get to older kids, but even with younger kids too, we like to kind of look at snow science and really look at kind of the properties of snow, because that's, again, a great way to kind of connect students with that snow and with the winter environment. So there's something you can do with kind of whatever basically like straight-sided container you have. So whether that's a measuring cup, little test tube like that, you could even do it with, if you didn't have a bunch of stickers on a water bottle, something like this, where you can see kind of the water line if you have water in there. And so this is something we do with students, where one example is we'll have a measuring cup. We'll have groups of students fill up that measuring cup with snow, and we'll talk about the snow water equivalents. And they might know that snow is made up of water, air, a little bit of dust. So it's not all water. So we'll have them guess, and they can use, we have these rubber bands so they can kind of guess where that water level is going to be once that full cup of snow melts. And so that's a great way, we can bring this in, we can microwave it or just let it melt over a period of time inside. And we can think about, how much of that snow is actually water. And oftentimes kids are surprised. Sometimes they think it's going to be, oh, the whole cup's full, or, this much. And often it's a lot less, but it depends on also the properties of the snow on any given day that you're actually packing in there. So again, you can do that with a measuring cup, any kind of straight-sided container you have. We also sometimes do it with these little test tubes that have a lid. And this is something where we'll give these to each student in the group. We'll have them scoop up the snow, fill it up, and ask them to, keep it with them somewhere they think that it'll melt, in a pocket or something like that. And then as we're doing our snowshoe hike, or, as you're going about maybe recess or, being outside, something like that, they'll kind of, it'll melt, and then they'll be able to, again, have guessed where they thought it would end up and see where it actually ends up as it melts. So you have your full tube of snow. Where is that water going to be? And so that's kind of a great way to really look at the properties of snow and start thinking about that, but in a kind of a simple way. And kind of with that, another great way to look at the properties of snow is to dig snow pits. So this is something we do with usually kind of the 6th to 12th graders, but it can work with a lot of different ages. And so we'll kind of find a field somewhere where there's a lot of snow and dig a small pit. We say pit, but you know, often just like a small kind of hole in the snow. And if you can, dig all the way down. And it's really cool to look at the properties of the snow in different layers. So sometimes you'll have an icy layer and you can like, oh, do you remember when it was 40 degrees and things melted last week or things like that? And then often, you know, it's more powdery down at the bottom. And if you have a thermometer, you can look at the temperature as well. So we often will talk about the subnivean layer where, you know, that snow is kind of blanketing and insulating things. So there's actually a pretty warm layer down by the ground. And a lot of animals use that warm layer. And so you can really tell if you stick a thermometer in the snow, like, oh, it's 20 degrees at the top, but it's like 32 down there at the bottom. And you can see that temperature difference and talk about how that is so useful for animals and how they need that snowpack on, you know, really cold days. Like, I don't know about you, wherever else you are, but it was, you know, -10 the last couple days. And, you know, those animals are out there resisting that winter, and having that blanketing layer of snow is really helpful. So those are some ways that you can start getting into that snow science, really looking at the properties of snow without a lot of extra materials. So we have some more activities to talk about. So we'll have Emma come and talk about a couple more.
Excellent. One of my favorite activities to do in the snow is actually easiest after it has just snowed, and that is looking at animal tracks. So easier in the spring when it's muddy, or after it's just snowed and you can find fresh prints around. It's not like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Whoops. That too. Kind of fun. So on our website, I believe in the kindergarten through 2nd or 3rd grade section, we do have a lesson plan exactly around tracking and looking at tracking mysteries. But depending on what you have in your classroom, you can have print-offs of different tracking cards and different prints and have students look at those and look at the animals that those prints belong to, or you can pull that up on smartboards. There are YouTube videos all about tracking. You can get as in-depth as you want, but look at different prints, talk about how the size of the print is very important. A mountain lion print is going to look very similar to a house cat print. It's just depending on the size of the print. So the scale is really an important clue as to what it is. Another important clue is if it has claw marks or not. So cats, for instance, retract their claws when they walk. If there are claw marks, it's going to be more likely that it's a dog. How many toes is another big indicator. And then the shape of the foot. So that's a cat. We've got snowshoe hares. We've got ungulates. And you can look at those different tracks. So when you're looking at tracks, you can also look for context clues around the tracks. For instance, if it is a hoof like this and it's gone up to a tree and you look up at the tree and maybe there's a scratch mark or an area that has been nibbled on, you can kind of figure out that maybe that ungulate, whether it was a deer or something else, was eating that tree or scratching on that tree. Or if you see little mice prints that are in the snow and then suddenly they disappear, but there's wing prints right there around the mouse prints, you might say, oh my gosh, something just like swooped down and grabbed that mouse. When I'm hiking with students, I'm often in a long line of students where I'm at the front. If I see an interesting track, I actually have one of these hoops and I can put that around the track and then put a corresponding card to whatever that track is next to it, and then have the adult at the end of the line pick that up. And that gives everyone in line, even if they're kind of far away from me and can't hear my voice, a chance to look at that track and notice it. So again, a great one can be done just outside your school, in the yard, on the sidewalk. You could probably print off tracks and put them down the hallway. And there's a lot of ways you could look at animal tracks. So that's a really fun one we have here. And then another activity I want to talk about is actually our snow relay game. So if you want students to really look at snow and what it's made of, this is a fun game, especially for younger students. So snow has 3 components. It's got dust. We have a card for dust. It's got water, We've got a card for water, and it's made up also of air. So this is a good activity if you're looking at doing snow cups and then melting them to see how much water is inside. This is a good activity to do ahead of that. So kids know that, oh, there's air in snow. It can't all be water. So we'll give students these cards. If we have two classes, we'll line them up next to each other, and then we'll actually have these bins maybe 30 feet away from them, and they have to run down, place their card in the bin, and then run back and tag the person who's next in line, and they have to go and run and put the card in. Really, the point of this game is fun and to warm them up, because oftentimes on field trips, it's cold. Okay, and younger children get a lot colder than adults do. So getting some of that energy going. And while they're doing this game, they have to cheer wildly for the kids that are still running. Oftentimes you'll have one line of students that's still going for another minute after the other line of students has ended, and they still have to cheer wildly for those students as they end. Once we've done the relay portion, we will redistribute the cards. So each student gets an air, a water, or a dust, and then they actually have to go and find two other students that have the cards that they don't have. And once they've found those students, they have to get together, and if they have the appropriate clothing on, they can lay on the ground and make their very own snowflake. So throughout this activity, at any point you like, you can also point out different snowflake shapes and how no two snowflakes are alike, but they all have 6 sides. So students can make their 6-sided snowflake with their bodies however they like. That's that activity. And with that, I'll hand it back to Lindsay for another activity.
Okay, and I think we've got 2 more activities, and then we will also show you where to find more lesson plans on our website. Now, this is one that when we talk about energy and how animals are, saving energy and getting energy and all of that in the winter, we often end up talking about photosynthesis and where that energy often comes from and how plants can, make their own energy. And so this activity is one where we will have this kind of bundle, and you can kind of get kids excited about this because it's like, what is this mystery bundle? And I know you can't see it too well with the green screen, but what is in here? So here I have representatives of all of the things that plants need in order to make their own food. So this is one where if you're standing in a circle, you can have students guess, what is the first thing? So we have this yellow bandana. It looks a little white on the screen, I guess, but this yellow bandana is first. And if we're in that circle, I can ask, what might that represent? What is one of the things that plants need in order to make food that might be represented by the yellow bandana? And Emma, if you want to be our student here, what would that be? The sun. The sun. Okay, so I toss it to Emma. Woo! And she can unwrap that to find our next bandana in here. And again, this is one that you don't really need. Bandanas are easy to get. You don't need kind of too complicated props. And now there's a blue one. Mm-hmm. And of course you have them guess, and that one is water. And so the water, that one you open it up, or you toss it to the student that guesses water. They open it up, find the next one. This is a white bandana. This is one that sometimes tricks students a little bit. Sometimes if you're in the snow, they'll be like, snow, but anyway. But this is something else. They might guess air, but it is
carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. So again, they toss it to the next student who opens it up and finds a green bandana. We promise you.
It's green.
Yeah, there's a green bandana there. We have a green
screen. It's really great camouflage.
And that green one, this one can be a little tough for younger students sometimes, but that represents something that the plant has that also, again, it needs in order to make that food, and that is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. And when we toss that to that last student, they can open it up and find sugar. So we have a little laminated picture of sugar, but you could also use something like a little jar of maple syrup or something like that to represent that sugar that plants make. And so that they have that, that food they create from the sun. And then that can, again, tie into that conversation about energy and how different animals and things like that get energy in the winter. Photosynthesis too, it's kind of cool that, did you know that the bark, there's still some photosynthesis going on in trees, not just from their leaves. So in the winter, there's still not as much, it gets a little slowed down, but there is still some photosynthesis going on. Pretty cool. Yeah. So one more that Emma will talk about.
All
By the
right.
way here.
Thank you. This activity you can do anywhere at any season. It's also one that's great to do when you're just exploring an area. And it's called I Notice, I Wonder, It Reminds Me Of. So I've written that on a small whiteboard here that I will have with me out in the field. So students have this in their brain of what we're looking for. So generally when I do this in the winter, I will set out some parameters of where they can look. I'll show them how to look at snow through a magnifying glass, how to put some snow on their gloved hand and look at it through the magnifying glass. I'll show them some examples of snow, so our snowflake examples again. And then I'll say, okay, you're going to have 3 minutes. You're going to do some exploring. And during that exploration time, while you're looking at snow, I want you to think about what you notice about the snow, what you wonder about the snow, and what the snow reminds you of. And then after those 3 minutes, we get back together as a big group and popcorn around and let students share as they like about what they notice, what they wonder, and what the snow reminds them of. Now, sometimes with older students, you'll get people that say, it reminds me of snow. Just tell them to try again. So that is a great activity that you can do anywhere, and it doesn't require any materials, just the power of observation. So with that, we've gone over some of our favorite activities, but Lindsay is going to talk about what is available to you on our website.
Yeah. And Emma, if you want to in a sec pull it up when I let you know, that might be easiest. Yeah, we've talked about, what we do, our field trips, our distance learning, our traveling trunks, some of the activities that we really like to do with students, especially in the winter. But we have so many more resources on our website, and we will of course send you a link to this. I believe we'll have an email sent out after this, and you can go ahead and browse that site, look at these activities. I'll have Emma pull it up now so we can see an example, and scroll down here a little bit where we have them divided by grade levels. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can also see them divided. There is a search based on the subject. So if you want to search by subject, you can do that as well. Or if you want to look at kind of grade level and age level, this has a whole list. So I'm going to just, for example, click on 3rd to 5th grade. Here we have a lot of different ones, again, kind of arranged by subject. So forests and change, we have all kinds of ones there. Habitats and change, watersheds and geography, winter and change, and all kinds of different ones. So for example, tracks, we'll click on tracks along the trail. This one has, the essential question, objective, background, has a procedure, what you'll need. This is a link to the TrackMaker copy page. There's a PDF that has some tracks on it. And so it has everything that you should need in order to do that program, and even has the standards and subject, the duration for those different programs. So as you saw there are just a bunch of those that we have there on our website. There's a lot. So if you run into like a link that doesn't work or something that you need clarification on, feel free to reach out. We'll have our email address here on the next slide, because we'd be happy to help you out and find the resource you need. But if you want to, kind of spend some time browsing those, they can be some great activities for connecting kids with the outdoors, with nature, as well as with those winter ones with winter. So I guess with that, we will come back here to our email address. So that is blackeducation@nps.gov. So that's our email. Feel free to send us an email if you'd like to be on the list to hear about distance learning, spring or fall field trips, or anything like that. And also, if you want to check out a traveling trunk, you can contact us there. Again, the only programs we're currently taking reservations for are those winter ecology field trips, and we only have a few days left. but we should be taking reservations for spring field trips as well as distance learning soon. So we're hoping probably the end of February. So if you want to contact us before that, let us know that you're interested. We can put your name on a list so that you will hear the information and be ready to register when we open up that registration. So Emma, if you want to come on back up, at this point, if you have any questions for us, feel free to let us know. Again, I know we shared a lot of activities and web pages and things like that, so we'll make sure we share those links with you afterward. Okay, I see a hand up.
Yes, I have a question. We are in Helena. I'm with the SAC program. And are your trunks very different from the ones from Montana Wild?
Oh, that is a great question. So I am not entirely sure which ones they have, but that is something we have a link on that Traveling Trunks page that has a link to other organizations that do have trunks. So feel free to look at our website, what we have, or if you want us to let you know what we have in a certain trunk, you can click on those individual ones to find out more about them. And then, yeah, there are a lot of organizations. So that's something that to be aware of as well, if you weren't aware that, yes, other organizations like Montana Wild do have trunks as well. So yeah, I don't know specifically how ours are different from those. But yeah, we have a link that has more information about other trunks, and you can kind of browse and see what our trunks have specifically. So
yeah, that's basically what I was wondering, if you can take a look at and see what you're getting, so because we're right up the street from Montana Wild.
Yes, that might be a little easier to get for you. Well, feel free to email us if you look on our website once we send out the links and you want any more information, and we can get you more info if you'd like individually.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So yeah, and as we said too, I know a lot of this is the After School Alliance. So, these resources we can provide for, whatever group you're with, distance learning as well, for whatever group, a lot of our stuff is kind of curriculum based, but can be applied to kind of whatever group you are with and what you're working with. We are happy to help out.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Emma. Share my screen again one more time. But yeah, we appreciate your time this morning, and we are grateful for all the resources that you have, and we hope that yeah, providers will reach out if they have any more questions on the resources. And yeah, we thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate knowing that people are interested in this, and that folks are doing all kinds of great things with students everywhere in Montana. So thank you so much, Heather, for hosting this, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, and then I might keep my screen on for a second to go over a few things with the participants if they're still on. Perfect. And we always enjoy hearing back from the participants. I'm going to drop the survey into the chat to see a link to it. We also have a few other programs coming up. And so I saw Bethany on, if she wants to hop on and give a quick update on the next couple virtual options that there are. If she's there.
Sure thing. And I also want to say thanks to the ladies from Glacier. That was awesome. I apparently am still signed into the Stevens Youth Center Zoom account, so I'm a little different person today. So coming up in February, we have 2 different options to attend Structure and Clear Limits, which is a training with Lena Fox, who was at our summer conference. And then in March, we'll be doing a trauma-informed series on healthy environments and responses to trauma in schools. That'll be March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And that one you would attend all 3 days. The other thing that I forgot to mention at our last training is if you're interested in receiving OPI renewal units, if you can let me know, and I can put my email in the chat as well. I know I've got at least one of you signed up, ready to go, but if anybody else wants them for any of the trainings that you've attended, just let me know.
Perfect. And then, oh, there's a phone call coming in. Another neat one we have coming up is another virtual option is for STEM. And let me pause this really quick to make sure. Okay. It'll be on March 14th and 15th, and it's Ready Go STEM, and we're working with 7 different states and state networks for after school alliances across the country. And we'll have resources from different states. We'll have nationwide resources, and then also some Montana resources available. So that sign up is available. So I'm going to drop that into the chat too. And we'll also send that out in our newsletter. Oh. And then lastly, a lot of these programs are coming from support from the Million Girls Moonshot. And so they have a participant survey that I'll put in the chat too. And it's a great way to get feedback on how our programs are meeting diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEM. And I think that is all we have for you guys today, but I really want to thank our participants and also our presenters over the last couple of weeks. We really enjoyed hosting them and sharing all these great activities and resources that we have in Montana. And if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And also if there's any requests on upcoming programs that you'd like to see or ways to get in touch with our presenters, just let us know. So thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Lindsay and Emma. And we look forward to keeping in touch.